It's time now for perspective. In recent months, a 16-year-old Northern Irish teenager with autism has become something of a common fixture on popular British nature programmes, while his debut book, Diary of a Young Naturalist, has won praise from conservationists and poets alike, and it seems Dara McAnulty's meteoric rise has only just begun. Dara, thank you so much for being our perspective guest today on France 24. Your first book is something of a cross between a nature book and a memoir. I think it's fair to say it's not easy to categorise the genre. What made you first want to write the book?
Thank you so much for having me here this morning. It always gives me great pleasure to talk about my book, and I kind of got into writing this book because it was basically my way of trying to put my life into some sort of perspective to myself, because I was sort of stumbling through it. I couldn't talk to people. I was really, really shy. I didn't really know how to interact with the world, and writing was that interaction for me. And writing the book gave me a way of merging almost my two worlds together. The stressful world that I live in when I'm not in nature and when I'm doing school and other things. And then that calm, peaceful world when I'm out in nature and when I like to write. And the book was sort of that merging of those two worlds and seeing how they interacted with each other. And during the book, I go through a really dark period. And it was actually the book that helped get me out of it in the end, because it showed me, writing the book itself showed me how important it is for me to actually write, in a sense, because the constant struggle in the book is whether or not writing means anything, or what's the point, or is it worth it? And upon finishing the book, I was like, well, it's one of the most incredible experiences of my life. So, of course, it was worth it. And it almost yeah.
And your book is really infused with poetry, beautiful descriptions of the natural world. When did you first encounter poetry? How did you realise that you might be able to use poetry to express yourself?
I wanted, as I've said before, a way of expressing myself, because I couldn't talk. And I tried many things in the past. I tried doing like art and like drawing, but I'm horrific at that. Music, horrible as well, but writing was that way for me to express myself. And I guess I needed it. It was because I was storing up all of these ideas in my head, and they weren't really going anywhere. They were just sort of sitting there and stewing and causing me harm in there. And by putting them out into the page, I can release them.
And have you been surprised at the extraordinary reaction your book's been getting, both from writers, poets, conservationists?
Yeah, it's completely taken me aback. Like, most of the stuff I don't even notice when it happens, because I've sort of kept myself in my own little bubble. But all of the praise that the book is getting, because I don't like to big myself up in any way, I just go, well, I feel like it's almost a way of showing that young people, we can write, we can put our imaginations onto the page in interesting books that can be praised by others, and that our words are meaningful and have power in a sense. And the idea that a young person, a young autistic person, can do that was really inspiring for me. And I hope that that if the book encourages just one person to take up a pen and start writing, or to go out into nature, just to notice what they can see, I feel like my book has accomplished everything that it set out to do.
Now, in the past, you've said that the internet, Twitter in particular, social media, helped you to come out of your shell. But there's also a slightly darker side to social media, and you've experienced that as well.
Yeah, Twitter is one of those things. It's like a double-edged sword a bit, because on one side you can interact with so many different people, and you can really talk to like-minded people and share your opinions where at least one person will listen to them in a sense. And I guess that's also the negative as well, because you'll have everybody else out there, and sometimes what those people say is frustrating, anger-inducing, makes you want to scream inside sort of thing. And of course there's some toxicity as well. And I kind of go for like this month cycle of Twitter. I begin it going really, really strong. I do loads of tweets. It's all going great. And then by the end of the month, I'm sort of trailing off, and I have to like take a break for a while, because you sort of build up the poison in your veins a little bit, and then you got to flush it out so you can go all over again.
I think a lot of people can sympathise with that approach. And you do, in your book, speak very openly about your struggles with mental health. How important do you think it is to be able to talk about the sorts of problems young people are increasingly experiencing? How important is it to break that taboo, do you think?
I think it's so important, because in in our generation, we're living such fast-paced lives. It's incredible. Like, you see the pace of how fast our world is accelerating, and we're like, even when it comes to how we're being schooled, we're doing exams a lot earlier. Everything's a lot faster, and the news is constantly flooding into our world, and it can be really, really stressful and almost dangerous, because you can get almost swept up in this treadmill of activity, and then when you fall off, you hit the ground really, really hard. And for me, nature was that way of getting out of that loop. It was a way to break away from the human world, which is always really, really stressful, and into a different world, one that I understood a little bit more. And people can find their own mechanisms for dealing with mental health. But I think the first step forward is to acknowledge that it is an ever-present cloud over our society at the moment that really needs to be addressed, and to break the taboos and stereotypes around it.
Now, you're an environmental activist, you're a writer, you also do, of course, have autism. Some people have described you as Northern Ireland's answer to Greta Thunberg. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm generally against making direct comparisons between people, because Greta is incredible, and she's started an incredible movement. But I'm a completely different person in a sense, and I feel like that individuality is really, really important, because I like to write, and I like to experience wonder at the world, and I like to see how the world could be, and how the world could be in spite of the way that it is now, and how we can grow to love nature and see the wonder in it. And I've almost taken into my heart this role as a writer is to show people the things that they may not see otherwise. And by doing that, I think you can show how beautiful the world is.
Now, you're
and
working...
if people think that the world is beautiful...
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. We've only got time for one last question, unfortunately. You are working on a book for children right now called Wild Child, A Journey Through Nature. What do you want kids who read your book to get from it?
I hope that they can go out into nature and they can see all the birds and the creatures that I've described in the book, because experience, I found, is everything. And to just look out into the garden or out into the streets and seeing these creatures, I think would, and them to recognize them and to almost go in, because the book is, in a sense, a guide to birds in your local spaces, and to not just birds, all sorts of creatures. And I hope if they see that and they almost keep in their mind's eye the pictures that they've seen, that it will inspire wonder of the natural world and see how it's all interlinked in this beautiful, beautiful web.
Dara McAnulty, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Dara McAnulty, author and naturalist, thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24 today.